My girlfriend's best friend shoved me down a flight of stairs and twisted her mind until she broke up with me. After that, he tried to set my house on fire and attacked me, so I made sure he ended up behind bars. I'd been discharged from the special forces after a mortar round tore up my leg. Once I got back home, I reconnected with my high school sweetheart. One night, I was staying over at her place when I woke up to the sound of someone coming up the stairs. I got up and grabbed my shotgun. Right then, some guy yelled out my girlfriend's name. Turns out, it was her so-called brother. Only thing is, he wasn't actually her brother. He was just some junkie she used to work with years ago. One time, she gave him a cheeseburger to help him through a rough come-down. Now here he was, begging her for a place to stay, said he'd just been evicted. Since it was her house, I didn't have much say in the matter. She let him crash there. He treated her like absolute garbage. Demanded she cook for him, do his laundry, and keep his fridge full. Then one night, the guy had the nerve to tell me to wash his dirty dishes. I told him to go screw himself and turned to walk downstairs and out the door. I hadn't made it more than a few steps when the door flew open behind me. Next thing I know, he's barreling toward me and shoves me down the stairs. I landed hard, flat on my back, cracked my head on the concrete. He jumped on me, swinging. I fought back, got the upper hand, and ended up on top of him, throwing punch after punch. I'll be honest, I didn't care if he didn't walk away from that fight. Someone was going to die that night, and it sure as hell wasn't going to be me. But then my girlfriend came running and saved his sorry life. She'd heard the commotion and found me pounding the guy into the ground. She shouted for me to stop, and I did. The second I backed off, that weasel started spewing lies. Sis, he tried to kill me. He attacked me, he cried. He threw me down the stairs just 'cause I asked about the PS4. For a split second, I thought she might believe him. But thankfully, she didn't. The neighbor's security cam caught the whole thing, and the footage proved I was telling the truth. That morning, I drove her to work and dropped her 4-year-old daughter off at daycare. I should mention, my girlfriend had a little girl. Her dad wasn't around, and that kid was just the sweetest thing. I loved her like my own. After I left the daycare, I headed to my job. Had to explain to my boss why I had bloody knuckles and an ice pack pressed against my head. They offered to call the cops so I could file charges. I turned them down. My boss wasn't having it. He pretty much ordered me to report it or he'd put me on medical leave. I told him I'd take the leave if it meant not losing my girl over calling the cops on her brother. He gave me a look and said I was being an absolute dumbass, and that decision would come back to haunt me. He wasn't wrong. Her brother gave her an ultimatum. Either she dumps me, or he's gone from her and her daughter's life for good. Now, to be fair to her, he had been the only consistent male figure that kid had ever known. Losing him would have crushed her little heart. So, yeah, I got cut loose. Honestly, I'd have preferred taking an axe to the chest. Because this was worse. It's one thing to say goodbye to the woman you love. It's another to say goodbye to a crying kid you were ready to adopt and raise like your own. I don't ever want to meet the kind of man who can walk away from that without breaking down. That guy would scare me. Back at my apartment, I packed up a box with toys, keepsakes, and clothes they'd left behind. I waited for the right time to drop it off at her job. I was heartbroken. But that scumbag? He wasn't done with me yet. He bragged before about having buddies who'd beat me up if they ever saw me. I figured he was bluffing. Turns out, he wasn't. He had some friends with criminal records and nothing to lose. Over the next few months, after the breakup, he sicked them on me. One morning, I found my car jacked up, wheels gone, windows smashed, spray paint all over it. Insurance didn't cover everything. I had to pay $3,000 out of pocket to fix it. Called the cops, filed a report. But the security footage didn't help, faces covered, gloves on, no prints. And let's be real, they're not rolling out a CSI team over some busted windows. 3 weeks after that, someone tried to set my front door on fire. Some creep in a hoodie lit a Molotov cocktail and threw it right onto my welcome mat. If the building's sprinkler system hadn't kicked in, I'd have burned alive. I live on the 3rd floor. No way I was jumping. Now that was serious. The cops actually paid attention. But again, no prints, face hidden, nothing solid to go on. Then quiet. For about a month. My ex reached out when she heard about the fire. I told her I knew her brother did it, but I didn't have proof. She said she'd talk to him. And just like that, the threat stopped for a while. Then, the cops started asking questions and wanted to talk to him. I'd given them his name as someone to look into. In the time since our fight, she'd made him get a job or she was going to kick him out. So he landed a part-time gig at some auto shop in town with a trash reputation, one of those places you only recommend to people you hate. They cut corners like crazy, so he fit right in, at least until the police showed up at his work asking questions about the fire. The owners didn't like heat from the cops, and since he was still new, they fired him. He didn't take that too well. One night, after work, I got home. I'd hit the gym, broke a sweat, and grabbed a quick bite at the grocery store. I pulled into my spot driving an Enterprise rental. My car was still in the shop and headed into my apartment. Now, just to clarify, I was over 23, legally owned firearms, and had a concealed carry permit. But on base, I didn't carry. It's rare for anyone, unless it's their actual job, to be allowed to carry a weapon around there. And I wasn't about to leave a pistol in my car. There was no secure storage at work either. So, I just didn't bring it with me. And that's why, on the morning her brother ambushed me, I wasn't carrying. I was completely unarmed. I was living on the 3rd floor, with a 4th level above mine and a stairwell leading up to it. One evening, I heard footsteps pounding down those stairs fast. When I turned around, I saw 4 guys coming at me, hoods up, faces masked, gloves on. My front door was already open. I dropped my grocery bags and rushed to slam the door shut, but one of them got his foot in. They forced their way inside. Everything that happened next took less than 20 seconds. Luckily, my neighbor across the hall had installed a security camera after the arson incident, so we had exact timestamps of the whole thing. I kept a loaded pistol stashed in the closet just inside the door. Not the smartest decision, I know. I was younger then, more reckless than I'd like to admit. As I struggled with the first guy, I reached blindly into the closet, got my hand around the grip, and shoved myself back, creating some distance. I can still clearly remember seeing all 4 of them standing there in the entryway. The first one, the one I just pushed, was blocked from falling back by the guy behind him. He was already lunging at me again. I raised my pistol, a SIG P226, chambered in .40 SNW. One of them shouted, "Gun!" But by then, I'd already started lining up my shots. I wasn't aiming for arms or trying to scare anyone off. I fired like I was trained to 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. The first guy dropped immediately. The second guy took 2 bullets that went clean through the first, then I put 1 in his forehead. The third froze in place long enough for me to put 4 center mass shots into him. The fourth guy tried to run. He was halfway out the door, but I finished off the magazine, firing through the hallway and hitting him through the guy in front of him, aiming at whatever I could see. That last one lived, somehow, which, in a weird way, worked in my favor. Since he survived, they couldn't charge me with the most serious offenses. But the first 3? They didn't make it. The first guy's insides ended up all over the second guy, and the second guy's remains painted a nice section of my hallway wall. They were all declared dead at the scene. That fourth guy, he turned out to be my ex's brother. Of the bullets that hit him, one skimmed his backside, another got lodged deep in his right cheek, and the last one nailed him right near the spine, around the kidney area. It shattered his vertebrae, ending his chances at ever walking again. No more breakdancing. No more biking. No more walking. He had to use a catheter permanently and wear a diaper, because that was pretty much the only thing his body could still produce. His sex life was over, and once he was out of the hospital, he went straight to prison. He got slapped with 3 counts tied to his dead buddies. Conspiracy to commit murder, assault, battery, you name it. He even picked up a reckless endangerment charge because I had to shoot while standing in my apartment, aiming across the hall where another apartment was. Bottom line? That man was never going to walk free again. Now, you'd think after all that, maybe there'd be some kind of happy ending. Maybe she would have seen the truth, taken me back. We'd get married, I'd adopt her daughter, and we'd have a couple more kids of our own. But no. Within 24 hours of the shooting, she told me she was scared of me. Said she didn't want me anywhere near her or her daughter. Said if I came near her home or workplace again, she'd call the cops. Which sucked, because I actually liked that Target she worked at. She called me every name in the book, accused me of setting the whole thing up, said I baited her brother just to get a reason to shoot him. She ignored all the vandalism, the threats, the arson, everything that piece of trash did leading up to it. And just like that, she disappeared from my life. Blocked me everywhere. Her family did the same. Changed her number. Switched to a different Target store. A few months later, she moved to a completely new place on the other side of town. It's been 7 years. Still haven't heard a word from her. I do know she's alive. A friend of a friend told me she got married in 2019, had another kid, and is doing well. Good for her. As for me, I never got that white picket fence ending. And believe it or not, even as someone trained for war, taking 2 lives, even in self-defense, messes with your head. It's different when it happens in your home, not on a battlefield. There's a huge psychological gap between killing in combat and doing it to protect yourself in your living room. I ended up with PTSD. Couldn't even touch my guns for a year without having a panic attack. The Navy helped me through it, though. They backed the investigation. Even that CO who once called me Apex Donut gave a full statement about the day I was attacked. They offered to let me live on base under protection for a while. I turned it down. That was 7 years ago. Since then, I've retired. Now I run my own company, an LLC doing cybersecurity and physical security consulting. The money's good. Sometimes I take the boat out. I've been with my current partner for 3 years now, and they're the most supportive, loving person I've ever known. I know they've got my back no matter what. We're talking about starting a family of our own before time runs out. Life's pretty good these days. But the other day, something happened that warmed my heart in a way I didn't expect. A Google alert I set up all those years ago went off. It was her brother's name, followed by the word obituary. Turns out someone in prison finally got sick of him. Guess he ran his mouth one too many times. Thought nobody would touch a guy in a wheelchair. Well, they used that wheelchair to kill him. Then stomped him a few more times to make sure the job was done. Of course, the obituary didn't say that. It said he was a bright and lovable kid who ran into trouble later in life. The real surprise? Apparently, he had a daughter. None of us knew that back then. Kinda sucks for her. But if we're being honest, she probably never really got to know him, and that might be for the best. Thanks for sticking around and listening to my story.